and welcome back to maths class. Today we're finishing the lesson on sketching straight lines. So in the previous video we learnt to sketch straight lines by finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now we're going to learn the gradient-intercept method, and it's not any more difficult than the previous method, but it's really important to have two methods because sometimes with a certain type of line it's easier to use one than the other, so we need to learn both. So when we use the gradient-intercept method, basically there are three steps just like the last time. First we find the y-intercept, then we use what we know about the gradient, the rise and the run, to find a second point, and we mark that on the graph, and then as usual we just join them with a line. So let's get started with an example. Here's my first example. I'm going to sketch the following graphs using the gradient-intercept method, and my first example is y equals x minus 2. Now because this is written in y equals mx plus c form, I don't need to find the y-intercept, it's here, right? I can read it off. As long as my graph is written in y equals form, then the y-intercept is always going to be the number that's added or subtracted at the end of the equation. So it's negative 2, and I'll just mark it in here with the point 0, negative 2. Okay, that's my first point. Now I need to find a second point using the gradient. Now the gradient is the number that multiplies x. In this case, the gradient is 1. But what I want to do is I'm going to write it as a fraction, because remember that my gradient is rise over run. And because it's 1, I can write that if I want to as 1 over 1, or I can write it as 2 over 2, or as 3 over 3. I can choose any one that I want. Okay, now because I'm starting at negative 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this one, but I could choose any of them and it would still get me the right answer. So let's choose 2 over 2. That means my rise is 2 and my run is also 2, because it's rise over run, 2 over 2. So I go up 2. Now I started at negative 2, so when I go up 2, that brings me to the origin. And then I run 2, so that brings me to x is 2 right here. So it turns out I've actually found the other intercept anyway, 2, 0. My final step, remember, is to join them with a line. Straight line. Ooh, let's try that again. Straight line going right through both points. Come on. Oh, so annoying. One more try. Hang on. There, done. Okay. I can put some little arrows on the end, which shows that this line continues. It doesn't stop there. Okay, let's do another example. All right, here's my next example. We're going to sketch y equals negative 2x over 3 plus 4. Now I've chosen this example because there's something you've got to be careful of here, and that is this gradient. A lot of people look at just the coefficient of x and they think that it's 2 or negative 2, but actually it's the gradient is the whole number that is multiplied by x. So in this case that is negative 2 over 3. Now if it had been written a different way, it might have been less likely to trick you. Like if we wrote negative 2/3 x plus 4, then you might be more likely to notice that it's this whole 2/3. But because it's written as negative 2x over 3, just be careful. It's the whole fraction, negative 2/3 is our gradient. So let's start by marking C on the graph. There's my plus 4. So my y-intercept is going to be at 0, 4. And then I'm going to find another point by knowing that this gradient is the rise over the run. Now I'm going to take my rise always as being, when I've got a negative number, one of these has to be negative. So my rise is going to be negative 2. And my run is 3. I usually like to keep my run positive, so I'm always moving to the right. Sometimes that's not convenient though, depending on where I'm starting. But in this case it should be fine. So If I've got a rise of -2 from here, that means I have to go down 2. So 1, 2. And then I have to go across 3. So 1, 2, 3. And that brings me to this point here, which is 3, 2. Now I'm just going to show you one other method of finding that second point. If I've got the point 0, 4, and then my run, that's my change in my x value. So to my run, I'm going to add 3. And my rise is the change in my y value. So from my y value, I'm going to subtract 2. And that leaves me with 0 plus 3 gives me 3. And 4 minus 2 gives me 2. And that's how I found this. It's another way that I could have found this point. All right, now let's join these with a line. See if I can do it. There we go. That looks good. All right, there's my line. Put some arrows on the end to show that it continues. So that's our video on sketching graphs using the gradient-intercept method.